In the waters once crossed by Sinbad the sailor, the Bajun people practice an extraordinary traditional technique, remora fishing. Respected by everyone, once venerated as a god, the remora attaches itself to turtles, rays, and sharks for its nourishment. The legend recounts that the remora sucks the blood of its victims to tire them out, hence the name vampire fish. Alphan lives north of the Kenyan coast on one of the wildest islands in the Lamu archipelago, the island of Kiwayu, on the edge of the Indian Ocean. He used to be a sailor on a tanker and traveled all of the world's oceans. He gave it up, however, to come home and live with his people. Alphan and Aruni are Bajun fishermen. Their lifestyle today is very similar to that of their ancestors 1,000 years ago, at the time Arab and Persian merchants began to frequent the region. It's December, and it hasn't rained for a long time. The donkey is the only means of transportation on the island. With their supply of water, Alphan and Aruni head for the creek in the village of Kiwayu, where their boat is anchored. On the eve of Ramadan, the fishermen leave their families for 2 days. They are going to sea to take up the nets. As in the time of Sinbad, the Bajun people's lives revolve around their boats. They are all excellent navigators and can find their bearings at night thanks to the stars. To give him courage, Alphan sings a song which says, "Even against the current we must row, hoping for a good wind. Keep rowing to keep the boat moving ahead, and so that Aruni, our captain, is happy." The men are happy. Their prayer has been answered. The wind is with them. Now they can sail further out to sea where the big fish can be found. Arab sailors have always used this sort of boat to sail as far as South Africa or China for the ivory and the spice trade. Legend says that Sinbad used it for his 7 voyages. Several hours from Kiwayu, Alphan and his people raise the nets. For their last deep-sea fishing expedition before Ramadan, they're hoping to catch a ray or a shark. The men are overjoyed at having caught 2 good-sized sailfish, an excellent and rare catch. Once, the Bajun only went remora fishing near the village. Now, however, they also use nets, a more modern technique, but one that requires them to go further out and for longer periods of time. Aruni and his men come to the small island of Pumbaa, protected from the undertow and from storms. Boats can moor easily here. Pumbaa has traditionally been a meeting and discussion place for all the fishermen in the area. Like Alphan, they come here to cut up their catch and caulk their boats before heading out to sea again. In the cage are the 2 remora that the fishermen gave Alphan and Aruni as a favor. They know that the 2 men are among the last to use the vampire fish, also called tasa in Swahili. Alphan carefully prepares the remora for the day's fishing. The technique is simple. It consists of inserting a nylon thread into the cartilage of the fish's tail. This operation, painless for the tasa, enables the men to follow it in the water. The vampire fish is highly respected, and the Bajun passed the tradition down from father to son. Once they were considered to be members of the family and were even given names. Alphan lets his precious allies swim around for a long time before putting them in the shade and out of danger. It's late and the men decide not to return to the village and spend the night on the island of Pumbaa. It's the eve of Ramadan. For 1 lunar month, according to the rules of Islam, the Bajun cannot eat or drink from sunrise to sunset. The fishermen are happy tonight. It has been a good day. Tomorrow we will return to the village with 2 sailfish, but even more important, with 2 vampire fish. Alphan shares his joy with the others. Thanks to the tasas, we can feed our families and observe the feast of Ramadan. We are very fortunate. The men realize how right he is. For them, the only way to survive for 30 days is to fish along the coast with the help of the remora. Meanwhile, in the village, the women dressed in their traditional bubus sing as they wait for the fishermen to return. The Bajun women gather together amongst themselves during Ramadan. Each occasion to be all together is like a celebration. The next morning, the men return to Kiwayu. Life seems to have come to a halt. No one will go fishing today. The imam of the village recites the verses from the Quran, asking for good fortune for the Bajun during their future fishing expeditions. Like all religious Shafite Muslims, Alphan listens to the prayers in great contemplation. Aruni makes a few repairs on the boat so as to be able to go out to sea as soon as possible. He is anxious to once again seal the alliance linking his people to the remora. The children of Kiwayu dive and play with the tassa as if it were a pet. The vampire fish is much more than a mascot to them. It's a very powerful symbol. Each of them dreams of fishing one day with the remora and with its help catching a huge ray to feed his entire family. The next day, after loading the tassas on the boat, the men leave the village and sail along the coast. Low tide makes navigation difficult. To get beyond the rocks, the boat has to take a very dangerous passage, only 2 or 3 meters wide. Each movement counts. Each maneuver is a risk. At At any moment, the boat could be shattered against the rocks below. At last, the fishermen manage to get through the narrow passage, and the boat heads for one of the areas reputed to contain ray and other big fish. On the high seas, at least a day's journey from Kiwayu, remora fishing can at last begin. The captain says to the fish, "Tasa, I hope you will find a ray or a shark. Our prayers go with you." The same ritual is carried out with the second remora. The Bajun always use 2 remora to facilitate bringing in their catch should it be too heavy. Aruni leaves about 300 meters of thread. It's the only link between the tasa and the men. Should it break, the men would lose their precious allies. A long chase begins until the remora have found their prey. Alphan and the others row so as to follow the vampire fish and to make certain they don't get tired out from pulling on the thread too much. Alphan is worried about one of his tasas. The sea is rough and the thread too loose, a sign that the fish is not completely oriented. Aruni brings it to the surface to check to see if it's all right and to make certain it doesn't die under the water. Once reassured, hope rises once again. The hunt can continue. On the remora's head is a small flat disc, enabling it to attach itself solidly to the back of its prey and to feed on its parasites. For the Bajun, this suction cup also allows it to attach itself to small boats and travel effortlessly. On the boat, the struggle continues. It's noon. Without having eaten or drunk anything, the men have been rowing for more than an hour in the blazing sun. They want to at all costs maintain the link with the tasas as they wait for a sign that will tell them that one of the 2 fish has found something. According to Bajun legend, the remora speaks to its prey. It says, "You are lucky today because I haven't caught you, but you can be sure that in the coming days I'll catch up with you. And when I take you out of the water, we will make a meal out of you. The men will eat your head while the women eat your body." The nylon thread suddenly begins to vibrate. Alphan knows that one of the tasas has just attached itself to a big fish. Ali dives in immediately to see if it's a ray or a shark. The remora has sunk its suction cup into a big stingray. The ray suddenly changes direction. The vampire fish must not let it get away. The men have to adapt very quickly to the tasa's new trajectory, so it doesn't get detached from its prey. The slightest error could destroy hours of patient waiting and effort. The Bajun have always believed that the remora sucks its prey's blood to tire it out. That's why the fishermen let the remora stay on its victim as long as possible. Ali thinks the ray is exhausted enough. He dives in again to help the tassa bring it to the surface. Under the water, he spears the prey, making sure not to harm the remora. The fishermen have to prevent the ray from struggling once on board and poisoning one of them with its venomous needle. A little blood flows when the tassa lets go of its victim. For Alphan, this proves that it is truly a vampire fish. Tired but happy, the men return to Kiwayu. They're proud to be able to show once again that the remora is a friend of their people. Tonight they will share with their families the joy of having caught an enormous ray during these first days of Ramadan. As they near the island, Alphan and the fishermen are joined by other boats. As soon as the wind blows, the festivities begin. The Bajun, as a game, lay down challenges and organize small races. They communicate from boat to boat with the help of conches. Alphan's memories of sailing the world on tankers are very distant today. He wouldn't trade his freedom for anything in the world, or the joy of living simply in harmony with the sea and with nature, surrounded by his own people.